Hey guys, it's BeggestAGFanEVer here, back again, and today I'm here for the first of 6 comparison videos of the 35th anniversary dolls. So if you didn't see my last video, I opened up all of the 6 limited edition 35th anniversary dolls that American Girl released. So in this video, we are going to be comparing the 35th anniversary Molly to my original Molly doll from 2006. And at the end of the video, I'm also going to be comparing the 35th anniversary Molly to the BeForever Molly doll that they released a couple of years ago as well. However, since the BeForever Molly and the 35th anniversary Molly don't have like the same meet outfit and accessories and things like that, I thought I would start off by comparing these two. So for the entire video, the 35th anniversary doll will be on the left here, and my original doll will be on the right. So let's go ahead and get started. So I thought first, before we would compare the dolls, we would compare the books. So here we have the book that came with the 35th anniversary doll, and here we have my oldest copy of Meet Molly. This one is copyright 1989. So just as well, this one is also hardcover. That was not the standard for their books, but it is the only Meet Molly that I have in Pleasant Company, so there's going to be a difference between that. So you can tell that the front covers between the two are identical, and then here are the backs of the two different books. Obviously, like I said, they're going to be a little bit different, but I thought I would just show you them side by side. And then here are the inside of the books. You can tell that they both have the "This Book Belongs To" page, and obviously since my copy of it I got from a thrift store, it has somebody else's name in it. And then here are the pages showing the friends. Here is the 35th anniversary one, and here is the hard copy version that I have. The only difference that I see is this photo is flipped between the two, and I'm honestly not sure why. But everything else between these two books seem to be the same, down to the exact page numbers as well. So overall, I'd have to say that American Girl did a good job at replicating the original book. Now let's get on to comparing the two dolls. Obviously, like I mentioned, I got my original Molly doll for Christmas of 2006, so she's not an original one from the 80s, but she is my oldest Molly doll that I have. And also, since she is so old and I got her when I was only 5 years old, she is obviously going to be in worse condition than the brand new one. But let's compare them anyway. So we are going to go ahead and start off by comparing the two dolls themselves, and then we will get into comparing their meet outfits and their accessories. So first off, obviously they both have the classic face mold, but if you are super obsessed with American Girl like me, then you would know that over the years, American Girl has slightly changed all of their face molds, including the classic face mold. So even though they both have the classic face mold, the new 35th anniversary Molly has a slightly different version of the classic face mold. So her face is a little bit thinner and her eye shape is a little bit more round when compared to the older version. Obviously, the face paint between the two is going to be a little bit different as well, but that could also be because my older Molly has been played with a lot more. One difference that I noticed that is not really picking up too well on camera, but is more noticeable in person, is that the new 35th anniversary Molly has slightly darker hair than my original Molly over here. So when I put the two braids next to each other, you can kind of tell on camera, but it's honestly much more noticeable in person that her hair is darker than hers. When you take off their hats, you can also kind of tell that my older Molly is a little bit taller than the newer one. And then when you look at their bangs, it is nice to see that the 35th anniversary Molly has the pie bangs back again, just like the original Molly did. So when I compared my original Molly to the BeForever Molly, I noticed that their skin tones were slightly different in color. From what I can tell here, these two definitely have skin tones that are closer to each other. However, the 35th anniversary doll slightly has more pinkish undertones, but I mean, it's really slight. As well with their faces, you can tell that there is a slight difference in the coloring of their eyes, with the newer Molly having a slight more darker gray color and the older Molly having more of grayish green colored eyes. When you flip them around, you can tell that the hair is identical between the two. They both have these smaller hairs back here, which is really good. Obviously though, my Molly's hair has been rebraided versus these very nice pretty braids that come with the new doll. So now that we compared the dolls, let's take a look at their meet outfits. And I have to say that American Girl did a pretty good job at replicating Molly's meet outfit. However, there are a couple of slight variations between the two dolls. Starting off, the first one you might notice is the difference between the glasses here. Both of them are made out of metal, which is very nice. However, something that you see that is different is the bridge of the glasses here is different between the two. Now, over the many years that Molly has been around, she has had a lot of variations in the bridge of the glasses, from it being more rounded like this, to it being more of like a triangle-ish like that, to it being more squared off. So honestly, I will let that difference slide. There is another difference that can be seen when you take off the glasses themselves. So here we have the 35th anniversary glasses, and here we have my original Molly glasses. You can tell that my original Molly glasses had these little black pieces on the edges of them, and one of them did fall off, but they were to protect the edges of the glasses. The new 35th anniversary ones do not have them, but like I said, Molly's glasses have had many variations over the years. Another difference is the shape of the edge of the glasses, and you can see that there is a very big difference. These have like a loop here, and it actually loops and fits very nicely around the doll's ears, which honestly I kind of prefer over my original ones. I find that my original ones tend to want to fall off more easily, but these ones fit perfectly with the ear shape and they don't slide off your doll's ears. So up next, we're going to take a look at their outfits, starting off with their hair ribbons. So the 35th anniversary ribbons, like I mentioned in the opening video, they kind of feel more like a windbreaker or a tent. And then my original Molly has more of a satin type of ribbon. So next, they both come with these dickies on them. And the dickies are almost identical, with the exception that the rickrack pattern on the new one is slightly bigger than my original Molly, who has more of a smaller pattern to it. The dickie itself also seems to be slightly smaller on the new one than the original. Next, we'll take a look at the sweater. So the sweater patterns between the two of them are identical, which I definitely appreciate. The colors on them are also identical, which is amazing. However, the actual sweaters feel very different. And I don't know if that's just because mine has been played with more, but mine feels so much softer than the newer one does. The newer one feels like it has a lot more elastic and stretch to it, versus my old one that kind of just feels like a warm, oversized sweater. The colors of the navy are also very slightly different. I don't know how well it's going to pick up on camera, but the original one is a little bit darker than the newer one. And the big obvious difference between the two sweaters is noticeable when you turn the dolls around. So by turning the two dolls around, you can tell that the new one has Velcro down the back and the original one did not. So to get the original one on and off your doll, you just had to slide it on over their head. However, the new one, like I said, has Velcro, and that can be both good and bad. Obviously, the plus is that it's easier to get on, but the negative of that is that the Velcro does show, as you can see. So now we will take a look at the skirts as well as the socks and the shoes. So the first difference between the skirts is that the color on the newer one is much lighter than the color on the older one. Once again, I'm not sure how well this is going to show up on camera, but the newer one is definitely more of a navy color, and the older one looks like it could almost pass as black unless you hold up something black next to it. The other very obvious difference is the material that is used between the two of these. The older skirt, I believe, was made out of wool, and the newer one definitely does not feel like it's made out of wool. It feels much thinner. The older one feels very thick and warm and durable. And then the 35th anniversary dolls had these little American Girl tags on the corner of a lot of their items, while the original ones obviously did not. And then finally, when you look down at their socks and shoes, their socks are actually identical and their shoes are as well. Once again, my Molly's socks are much older, so the elastic has been stretched out a bunch. The only difference between the two shoes would be when you look at them from the bottom. The newer ones have this little stamp on it and the older ones do not. So the final thing to look at between the two dolls are the bloomers, and they are both identical between the two of them. So now that we took a look at their outfits and the dolls, let's take a look at the accessories. So here we have both of Molly's lockets. You could tell that they both actually have the same design on them, which is nice, but the obvious difference between the two of them is that the new one doesn't open and the old one does open. So here's what the inside of the old one does look like. It has a picture of Molly's dad in black and white. Other slight differences between the two are the width of the chain. The newer one has a much thinner chain than the older one. And then, like I mentioned in my unboxing video, the newer one has a slightly different clasp from my original one. The next item that we're going to compare are their two berets, and hopefully right off the bat you can tell that the newer one is much lighter than the older one is. The fabric between these two are also very different. Like I mentioned before, the older one I believe was made out of wool, and this newer one just doesn't feel like it is made out of wool. It feels a lot thinner than the older one, which is much thicker in comparison. The size of these two are identical though, and when you flip them over, they do look pretty much the same. So up next, we will compare the two purses, and honestly, I was kind of surprised at a couple of differences between these two. So the newer one definitely is more matte than the older one. As you can see, when I move this one, it is super shiny, but the newer one is totally matte. And the material feels different. The older one almost feels like it's real leather, whereas the newer one just feels more like fake leather. Both of them do have velvet straps going on them. And then another difference is that the newer one is darker in color than the older one. Here are the backs of them as well, and something that you can see from the back is that the older one is way smaller than the newer one. So when I hold them up next to each other, you can see that it's shorter and it is thinner than the newer one. So here are what the bags look like when they are open. Then here is the inside of the newer bag versus the inside of the older bag. You can see that the tags are in different positions, but other than that, they're basically the same. The next item we will compare are the two handkerchiefs, and honestly, I'm surprised at how similar these two look. The only differences are that the newer one is slightly more white than the original, and the stitches are slightly further apart and bigger than the original one as well. But other than that, the embroidery is basically identical, as well as the colors of the stitching too. The next item we will compare are the two glasses cases, and honestly, I would say that these two have the most differences. It's pretty obvious looking at them what the differences are. You can tell that the colors are totally different. This one is more of a neon red, and the older one is more of a darker red, as well as the stitching on this one matches the actual fabric, whereas the older one has green stitching to go with it. The fabric itself is also pretty different. The newer one is more rough and coarse, whereas the older one reminds me more of a fleece type of material. And then the final thing we're going to compare are the two pennies. Besides the fact that the older one is slightly less shiny, the front of these are basically identical. It's the back of them where you can tell the difference between the two of them. The newer one says 1 copy of America, and the older one says 1 cent United States of America copy. So now the final comparisons I'm going to make in this video are between the new 35th anniversary Molly and the BeForever Molly. Obviously, a lot of the comparisons between these two dolls are going to be like comparing apples and oranges, since they basically are two different dolls while looking at them. But I'm going to try my best to compare as many things that are similar between the two dolls. So starting off, let's go ahead and compare the dolls themselves. So I went ahead and took both of their glasses off so that way you could see their faces better, and both of them once again do have the classic face mold. However, I was surprised to see that even these two dolls have slight variations between the classic face molds. The BeForever Molly looks like she has more circular eyes than the 35th anniversary Molly does. Other differences between the two dolls are their eyes. The BeForever Molly has the bad eyes from American Girl. I never sent her in to get her eyes changed, so they are the bad quality eyes when compared to the newer ones, which have the better quality eyes. The difference in color between them, though, are that the BeForever ones tend to be a little bit darker than the new 35th anniversary eyes. Now, as for their hair color looks to be basically the same color, and the biggest difference between the two are their bangs. So if I go ahead and take off their berets, their bangs almost look identical when looking at them until you get a closer look. So like I mentioned earlier, the new 35th anniversary Molly has the pie bangs, which means that her bangs start at a single point in the back and then all the hair comes from there and moves forward. But as you can see, the BeForever Molly does not have these type of bangs. She has a part going down the middle of her head, And then she has these very weird bangs that personally I don't really like. If you lift up the front of her hair, you can see that her bangs come from the edge of her wig cap, but then she has these two very weird pieces here that come from the part to try to make her bangs look more like pie bangs. So I'm very glad that they went back to the pie bangs for the 35th anniversary doll. Another difference that I found to be interesting between the two of them are the length of their hair. The new 35th anniversary doll has hair that is much longer than the BeForever Molly's hair. However, the thickness of their braids are basically identical. So then there are a couple more things that we're going to compare between the two dolls very quickly. Starting off, their bows and their hair are different as well. The BeForever Molly has the satin bows like my original Molly doll did, and then the other difference between the two are their lockets. So when you take a look at the two lockets, even though both of them don't open, they are still different. The new 35th anniversary Molly has the original design on it, but the BeForever one has this other design on it that's different. The clasps that are being used to close the necklaces are also very different. So the final comparison I want to make between the 35th anniversary and the BeForever Mollies are their purses. And the first thing is that the color between these two purses are actually identical. I'm pretty sure that they used the same fabric as the base for this one that they did for the base of this one. The first difference though is that the 35th anniversary one has the velvet strap as well as the velvet lining like the original Molly did, but the BeForever one had like this ribbon lining and then it had a pleather strap. The other main difference is that the 35th anniversary one has an actual snap, whereas the BeForever one had Velcro. So the actual very last thing I wanted to compare between these three dolls was their body cloth. Over the years, American Girl has changed the body cloth of their dolls many times. So I thought we would do a quick comparison in the quality between the body cloths of a doll from 2006, 2021, and 2018, I believe. Besides the obvious fact that the older dolls had much smaller body tags, there are a couple of other noticeable differences. You can see that the color of the body cloth has changed over the years, with the original one being more of a neutral color and the new one being more of a peachy color, and the BeForever one being more of a yellowy color. Other than that, the actual fabric has changed a lot. The thickness of the original fabric is really good. Personally, this is my favorite. I feel like it's really thick and durable. The new one kind of draws back to the thickness of this one, but it's still not as thick. And then the BeForever one, the thickness of this one is really thin. These ones just feel more durable than this one. Another difference that you can kind of tell based on looking at them is how thin they are. You can see that my old 2006 Molly is a little bit chunkier here when compared to these two. The BeForever Molly is the thinnest, and then the new 35th anniversary one is a little bit thicker, but nowhere near as thick as my 2006 Molly. When you turn the dolls around as well, you can notice some other differences between their bodies. The neck strings on my original Molly are much longer than the new 35th anniversary Molly. And then obviously the BeForever Molly has no neck strings, she has zip ties. But I feel like turning them around as well, you can also see how much thinner the BeForever Molly's body cloth is. If you look around the seams, it is much darker, and that is because you can see the overlapping of the fabric. The overlapping of the fabric can be seen a little bit here, but nowhere near as much as the BeForever Molly. And then the overlapping of any fabric in the old 2006 Molly is totally not noticeable because the thickness of the fabric prevents you from seeing any overlapping. So here we have all three of the Molly dolls next to each other. From left to right, we have my original Molly, the 35th anniversary Molly, and then the BeForever Molly. As you could tell from this video, the 35th anniversary Molly is pretty similar to the original Molly doll, but obviously she's pretty different from the BeForever Molly. Personally, my favorite Molly is always going to be my original Molly doll for many reasons, but probably the number one being that she is super sentimental to me, but I am still very happy that I did get the 35th anniversary Molly doll. Be sure to let me know down in the comments below what your favorite Molly doll is. And obviously, there are probably so many other similarities and differences that I couldn't talk about in this video or just didn't notice between these three dolls. Honestly, it's like a game of trying to play spot the difference. So if you have any questions about similarities or differences, or if you spot any similarities or differences from watching this video, be sure to also leave those down in the comments below as well. But I guess that is it for this video. If you guys enjoyed, please be sure to leave this video a like. Also, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell icon so you'll be notified every single time that I upload. And like I mentioned before, comment down below which Molly doll is your favorite out of these three. And be sure to follow me over on my Instagram. It is _BiggestAGFanEVer_ to see behind the scenes of my channel, as well as a bunch of cute photos of my dolls. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!